We'll begin with the preliminary prayers. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the Immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the Immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the Immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By my accumulations of the practice of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By my accumulations of the practice of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By my accumulations of the practice of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Excuse me for just 1 second. Independent origination, there is no ceasing, no rising, no annihilation, no permanence, no coming, no going, no separateness, and no sameness. I prostrate to the Buddha. Independent origination, there is no ceasing, no rising, no annihilation, no permanence, no coming, no going, no separateness, and no sameness. I prostrate to the consummate Buddha, the supreme among all teachers, the one who taught this peace, which is freed of elaborations. I prostrate to the mothers of the hearers, the Bodhisattvas and the Buddhas, which through the knowledge of all lead hearers seeking pacification to complete peace, which through the knowledge of past causes those helping my greatest to achieve the aims of the world, and through the possession of which helps subdues expound a variety of teachings. The one who is transformed into the reliable guide motivated by altruism to benefit sentient beings, the teacher, Sugata, and protector, to you I make prostrations. The one who has eliminated the web of conceptualizations and is endowed with the divine bodies of the vast and the profound, who eternally shines forth the forever noble light rays, to you, the Buddha, I make prostrations. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind of full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. This is a mantra of dependent origination. Om ye dharma hetu prabhava hetun tesham tathagato hyapadat tesham chayo nirodha evam vadi mahashamanaye swaha. Om ye dharma hetu prabhava hetun tesham tathagato hyapadat tesham chayo nirodha evam vadi mahashamanaye swaha. Om ye dharma hetu prabhava hetun tesham tathagato hyapadat tesham chayo nirodha evam vadi mahashamanaye swaha. All phenomena arise from causes. The causes are taught by the Tathagata. The cessation of the causes as well is taught by the great seer. Profound, peaceful, elaboration-free, clear light, and non-composite. Such is the nectar-like dharma I have discovered. Finding no one to fathom this teaching, in silence I will retire into the woods. Beyond utterance, thought, and expression is the perfection of wisdom, which is unborn, unceased, and has the nature of space. It is the object of apprehension of self-realized wisdom. To you, the mother of the Buddhas of the 3 times, I pay obeisance. All composite things are impermanent. All contaminated things are of the nature of suffering. All phenomena of the nature of emptiness and selflessness. Transcending sorrow is peace. The Guru is the Buddha, the Guru is the Dharma, likewise the Guru is the Sangha. The Guru is the source of everything wholesome. I go for refuge in the Guru. By the sound of the vibrant drama of Dharma, you liberate all beings of miseries. I beseech you to kindly remain and give teachings until the end of the expanse of billions of eons. The Buddha does not wash the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. His spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It is by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. With folded hands, I beseech the Buddhas of all directions to shine the light of Dharma for all bewildered in misery's glooms. If you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. Praise to Buddha, to the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the Buddha, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened one, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When, O supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you, who were wise then, I prostrate. With pure bodies, form supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the vast, Lord, to you I prostrate. With a supreme science, face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Dust-free like you, the 3 worlds are not, incomparable wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you, the Tathagata, I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to the dharma that pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated and also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the Sangha, I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberration, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the foe of false, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. The Hat Sutra mantra, Tayatha Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhi Swaha. Tayatha Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhi Swaha. Tayatha Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhi Swaha. Tayatha Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhi Swaha. Tayatha Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhi Swaha. Tayatha Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhi Swaha. Tayatha Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhi Swaha. We'll recite all the verses 3 times. I go for refuge to the triple gem. I confess the negativities individually. I rejoice in the virtues of all the beings. I hold the precious Buddhahood in my heart. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Sangha. I generate the mind of bodhicitta to resolutely accomplish the aims of others and myself. Having generated the mind of supreme enlightenment, bodhicitta, I invite all sentient beings to be my guests and shall engage in the delightful and excellent practices of full enlightenment. May I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge to the triple gem. I confess the negativities individually. I rejoice in the virtues of all the beings. I hold the precious Buddhahood in my heart. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Sangha. I generate the mind of bodhicitta to resolutely accomplish the aims of others and myself. Having generated the mind of supreme enlightenment, bodhicitta, I invite all sentient beings to be my guests and shall engage in the delightful and excellent practices of full enlightenment. May I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge to the triple gem. I confess the negativities individually. I rejoice in the virtues of all the beings. I hold the precious Buddhahood in my heart. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Sangha. I generate the mind of bodhicitta to resolutely accomplish the aims of others and myself. Having generated the mind of supreme enlightenment, bodhicitta, I invite all sentient beings to be my guests and shall engage in the delightful and excellent practices of full enlightenment. May I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas, please pay heed to me. Just as the previous Buddhas have generated the mind of bodhicitta, and just as they successfully dwelt in the bodhisattva practices, likewise, for the benefit of all sentient beings, I will generate the mind of bodhicitta, and likewise shall I too successively train in the bodhisattva practices. Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas, please pay heed to me. Just as the previous Buddhas, having generated the mind of bodhicitta, and just as they successively dwelt in the bodhisattva practices, likewise, for the benefit of all sentient beings, I will generate the mind of bodhicitta, and likewise shall I too successively train in the bodhisattva practices. Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas, please pay heed to me. Just as the previous Buddhas have generated the mind of bodhicitta, and just as they successively dwelt in the bodhisattva practices, likewise, for the benefit of all sentient beings, I will generate the mind of bodhicitta, and likewise shall I too successively train in the bodhisattva practices.
Thank you, Sneh, and thank you, each one of you. And I see that there is the Professor Roger Jackson here, and Pamela. It's a great joy for me to be with all of you once more. And so since that we have only 4 sessions and one is already done, now we have 3 sessions, and that the text per se is quite technical, number one. Number two, that it requires a lot of background information, and without which the text they will not be able to do justice to the sophistication of this text, the incredibly profound text. So we'll try best. The one that the background information is really required, without which, again, the what we study, many of us who are new to this, I see that, in fact, most of you from Shantideva Center and from others, who are doing the courses from Tibet House, we see that you are mostly senior. So from that point of view, we don't require as much the background information. But at the same time, if there are some of us here who are new to this concept of emptiness, and if you just directly jump into this commentary on Bodhicitta text directly without explaining anything, the tendency for us to fall into nihilism is greatly a danger. So therefore, what we do is that I'll give a quick overview of the background information, which I'd like to share with you. And those from the Nalanda diploma course, NDC 4, which is undertaken Tibet House, you just came out of the introduction to emptiness already. You're also doing the emptiness part, and here also is emptiness part. Those of us who are from the NDC 4, who just finished one class, and now with a gap of half an hour, we are doing the second one. It's more like a repetition for you, but this is, in a way, it's really helpful for somebody like Hansla. This is going to be like, not repetition, it's going to be like 4 times repetition, 5 times repetition for Hansla, and for, where is our, the Abelardo, this is going to be like 3 times repetition. Yeah. Okay. So with this in mind, so I like to quickly share with you what is that like. So because that this text, so initially it starts with something more the light topics, and then gradually it delves into emptiness. So for that matter, they say what is emptiness, number one. Then number 2 is that how we can protect ourselves from falling into nihilism. This is there's every danger that one can fall into nihilism, which I've seen that actually in my own life, meeting with people, particularly meeting with, the university, the academicians, university professors who teach Buddhist philosophy, and yet they wholeheartedly, they say very confidently, they feel that the Buddha taught that nothing exists, everything's empty, and they literally mean it. This is quite a sad thing. So with this, what I would say is that the let's say that the emptiness, number one, before we delve into emptiness, we need to begin with two questions. The first question is, do things exist? And every time you fall into nihilism, or you meet with people who tend to, they tilt towards nihilism, remember these two questions. Remember these questions, and if you are in tune or in line with the positive or the correct answers to these two questions, you are on a proper track. And although you understand emptiness may not be complete, it doesn't matter, but you are in a proper track. So with this in mind, the first question is, do things exist? This is the question. Do things exist? And if the answer is no, Buddha said that everything as a part of the four seals, everything is nature, emptiness, and selflessness. Everything is the empty. So on that ground, if you say that no, nothing exists, you already fall into nihilism. You already fall into nihilism. So the answer should be, yes, everything exists. Good things exist, bad things exist. Happiness exists, miseries exist, and that everything exists. Then the next question is that if things exist, only if your answer is of the affirmative to the first question, do things exist? Only if your answer is yes, then you are entitled to go for the second question. Second question is, do things exist objectively? Then the answer, if your answer is affirmative, yes, you fall into absolutism, extreme of absolutism. So for this, the answer should be no. Nothing exists objectively. If you're able to answer this correctly, you are freed from falling into the extreme of absolutism. So then the next question is, if things don't exist objectively, how do they exist? Because you said things exist, number one. Number two, you said nothing exists objectively. Then how do they exist? Many of the advocates of objective existence, in fact, almost all, for all the advocates of objective existence, for them, existence and objective existence, these two are synonymous. If you say something exists, for them, it is like you are saying things exist objectively. And when you say nothing exists objectively to the ear, it is like nothing exists. In fact, altogether, nothing exists. So this purely, they see you as falling into nihilism. Whereas following the Prasangika philosophy, of course, we have only 4 sessions. And what I would say is that all of us doing these 4 sessions, the yesterday and today and the next two sessions for next weekend, when you go to the big monastic universities, don't tell the people that I studied emptiness in 4 sessions. Just keep it confidential. Keep it confidential, and if they ask you, did you study emptiness, just maintain a dignified silence. Okay. Don't say that I study emptiness, because the people study for like 10 hours, 12 hours a day, multiplied by 365 into 20, 30 years. So if you say that I study emptiness, and people will have a tremendous respect for you. Wow, they have studied emptiness. How many years you studied? Not years. Then how many months? Not months. How many weeks? Not months, not weeks. How many days? And not even days. 4 sessions, right? Okay, then, and they will not be too happy. Okay, the best thing is maintain dignified silence. Okay. So with this in mind, if you get through these 2 questions well, do things exist? Answer should be yes. Second question, do things exist objectively? Answer should be no. Then automatically, very naturally, the next question that will come to you is, how do things exist if they don't exist objectively? Then your answer should be that on the basis of what we are going to learn here, the answer should be that things exist subjectively. Okay, things existing subjectively doesn't mean that that this is nihilism. So this is one thing that we need to remember, that things exist subjectively doesn't mean nihilism. Same, one thing that we need to know is the distinction, to make a distinction between nihilism and subjectivity, that everything is subjectively, and nihilism, where one believes that everything is merely illusion created by your mind. So in both cases, we say that both are coming from your mind. One is illusion, everything in the form of illusion coming from your mind, and the other one is that everything exists so efficaciously, but all coming from your mind. In both cases, there's a mention that everything comes from your mind, but a part of your mind. So if everything is coming from your mind, then the advocates of objective existence, they believe that if you believe that everything is coming, they come from by the part of your mind, or from your mind, everything is like imaginary, just your imagination, imaginary. If they're imaginary, then it's purely illusion. So then you, in a way, what you are saying is that nothing exists there. It's just imagination that you create. For example, I can imagine that I'm a Buddha, or I can imagine that, okay, now I'm not Buddha, right? So I say I'm a Buddha, I'm not Buddha, or I'm a human being, I'm a piece of chocolate. This is all imagination. So imagination has a connotation of nihilism, whereas the imputation here, where the functionality can be accounted for, that is something which is the extremely important. So how to distinguish between the two, nihilism versus that things exist by the power of the mind, as posited by the Prasangika? How do you how do you distinguish the two? This is so important. So to make it very short, with what we call as the nihilism, there the cause and effect is defined. Cause and effect is defined in the case of the advocates of the nihilism, where they say that no, there's nothing there. You do good things, and then your effort is just the pointless. It'll give rise to miseries. And then you do, they say the miseries, you do negative things or non-virtuous actions, and then who's there to decide that you will have the miseries? No, but there's nothing there. There's no cause and effect. This is purely nihilism. Whereas in the concept of the emptiness, the true understanding of emptiness, there the emptiness should not be seen as nihilism. It should be seen as in the form of dependent origination, meaning that emptiness has a connotation of dependent origination, and dependent origination has a connotation of the middle way, where the cause and effect operation is infallibly operating, and the functionality can be accounted for infallibly. So this is the meaning of the dependent origination and the emptiness. And nihilism, cause and effect cannot be accounted for, the functionality of the world cannot be accounted for. This is nihilism. While both, except that things are purely coming by the power of your mind, but one cannot account for the functionality, cannot account for the dependent origination. Whereas the advocates of emptiness, like Nagarjuna, can explain emptiness on the basis of dependent origination. This is so important, and with this in mind, let me quickly, because this is so important, if we just plunge into this text directly, after a while, by the time you reach the verse number 30, 35, 40, then it's all about the emptiness, and then the most likelihood is that most of us, we can easily slide down into nihilism. This is very dangerous. So therefore, although I see that many of you here, like we have Geshe Man, that is Nagarjuna here, she already did her Geshe degree, and we have many seniors, the Hansla, the Abelardo, and the many of this, the senior most, Roger Jackson here, and Pamela there. So although this is going to be like a repetition for many of us, and then we have Nicole also. Nicole. Yes. So the but for the majority for us, this is so important to understand emptiness in the context of dependent origination. So for this, I would be happy to repeat this, but whatever we have discussed in the early class for those of us who attended the Nalanda Diploma course. Okay, so let me put it like this. This is primarily for the people who are beginners to the concept of emptiness. At the same time, keep in mind that you coming in contact, you and me, each one of us, coming in contact with the teaching on emptiness, the concept of emptiness is extremely, extremely precious. Extremely precious. We are all very meritorious. Without having such a merit, it's impossible that we can meet with such a teaching. For example, there are many traditions which take for granted that the self, things exist as objectively real, as ultimately real. And the people strongly believe in this. And there's no way by which you can hear somebody saying that everything exists by dependent origination. Nothing exists as ultimately. There's no way by which people can hear these concepts, and we are very fortunate. And not only that, we meet with this teaching, and also let us pray that eventually that each one of us be able to really master this concept and be able to share this out of incredible compassion for all the sentient beings. This is so important for us. So with this in mind, in order to protect ourselves from falling into nihilism, the emptiness should not be seen as nothingness, but emptiness should be seen as should be seen as dependent origination. Let me say this again. Emptiness should be seen as emptiness equals dependent origination, number one. Number two, dependent origination equals the middle way. Therefore, emptiness equals the middle way, not nihilism. And just as in mathematics, we say A equals B, B equals C, therefore A equals C. This is how it works in mathematics. Likewise, we apply this to this emptiness concept. Emptiness equals dependent origination. Dependent origination equals the middle way. Therefore, emptiness equals the middle way. When you say emptiness equals the middle way, implying that it is not nihilism. This is not to be understood as nihilism. Okay, so we need to know how is it that emptiness equals dependent origination, number one. Number two, how is it that dependent origination equals the middle way? If you're convinced with these 2 points, then naturally you can deduce that emptiness is the middle way. First, how emptiness equals dependent origination? For this, we need to know 5 points. 5 points. Number one, emptiness. Number one is emptiness. Number two, emptiness is a short form of emptiness of independent existence. Let me repeat it. Number two, emptiness is a short form of emptiness of independent existence. For example, I say what is who? What is who? And then some of you may say that, who are you? Right? Who are you? This is not what I meant. I meant what is the full form of WHO, who? World Health Organization. Who means, who is a short form of World Health Organization. Form of emptiness of independent existence. Emptiness is a short form of emptiness of independent existence. Okay, so number one is emptiness. Number two is that emptiness is a short form of emptiness of independent existence. Number two. Number three, emptiness of independent existence means nothing exists independently. Number three, let me repeat it. Emptiness of independent existence means nothing exists independently. Number three. Number four, nothing exists independently means everything exists by dependence. Number four. Number five, everything exists by dependent means everything is dependently originated. So this is how we understand emptiness means dependent origination, or emptiness equals dependent origination. The next, how is dependent origination how dependent origination equals the middle way. And dependent origination has two sides, dependence and origination. Dependent origination has two sides, dependence and origination. The first, dependence. When we say dependence, it rejects independence, opposite of which is independence. And when we say dependence, it rejects independence. And independent, absolute, they both mean the same. For example, said that here's the independent authority, independent, the power, or absolute power, they mean the same. So when you say that the independence has a connotation of the absolute, when you say dependence, the first side, dependent origination, so first side of which is dependence, by dependence, the absolutism is rejected. The extreme of absolutism is rejected. The second part of which is origination. When you say origination, origination means something comes into origination, something comes into existence. So what is the opposite of existence? Non-existence. When you say origination, it rejects non-existence. What is non-existence? Nihilism. So when you say origination, it rejects the extreme of nihilism. Together, rejects the two extremes. Rejecting the two extreme is following the middle way. So this is how dependent origination means the middle. So now that you know how A equals B and B equals C, you can easily deduce that, therefore, A equals C. Likewise, emptiness equals dependent origination, and dependent origination equals the middle way. Therefore, emptiness equals the middle way. This is so important for us to know. This is so important for us to know. So with having said this, then the Buddha, so from this, what we learn is that the emptiness, given that it has a connotation of dependent origination, we don't incline towards nihilism. Emptiness should be understood as dependent origination. So the more we understand, more we appreciate the concept of dependent origination, the deeper we can go into emptiness, and the less likelihood that we can fall into the extreme of nihilism and extreme of absolutism. This is so important. It's for this reason that the Buddha taught on the dependent origination so many times, one of the most important which is the Salistamba Sutra, Rice Seedling Sutra. Salistamba Sutra in Tibetan, Salujangbe Do, Rice Seedling Sutra. So there, the Buddha taught that whosoever sees dependent origination will see the Dharma, and whosoever sees the Dharma will see the Buddha. Let me repeat it. The Buddha taught in the sutra that in fact, in the sutra, you will see how Shariputra relates this to Arimathea when two of them were having a courtesy meeting. That this morning, when the Bhagavan was passing by on the rice field, the Buddha stopped and pointed to the rice seedling. And the monks, whoever sees dependent origination will see the Dharma, and whoever sees the Dharma will see the Buddha. And then further, the Buddha taught that because this exists, that exists. Because this is produced, that is produced. Because of ignorance, the karma arises, because of which the consciousness arises, name and form arises, the sources, the contact, the feelings, the attachment, the grasping, becoming, birth, aging, death, bewilderment, confusion, all these heap of miseries arise. Then the Buddha went further. If the ignorance ceases, the karma ceases, because of which the consciousness ceases, the name and form ceases, and then the sources, the contact, the feeling, then the attachment, grasping, the becoming, the birth, and the aging and death, and the bewilderment, confusion, and all these, the massive miseries all stop. So this is what the Buddha taught. So from this, the first line, when the Buddha taught, whosoever sees dependent origination will see the Dharma, and whosoever sees the Dharma will see the Buddha. So what is meant by dependent origination? This is the question. And then Shariputra asks all these questions in great detail in the sutra. What is meant by dependent origination? What is meant by Dharma? What is meant by the Buddha, and so forth, and how to see dependent origination? All these the Shariputra asks in great detail. So this dependent origination, seeing of which one is entitled to have seen, entitled to see the Dharma, and then because of which one sees the Buddha, is that dependent origination. His Holiness, of course, if you read the Sadhisthamba Sutra, we see that this dependent origination is explained in the context of external dependent origination, internal dependent origination, causal dependent origination, conditional dependent origination, so forth. So His Holiness the Dalai Lama puts it so beautifully in the form of the 3 levels of dependent origination. For us, for time being, if we can know this, and then later on we can make it more elaborate on the basis of the Sadhisthamba Sutra, the study of the Sadhisthamba Sutra, which would be extremely helpful for us. And finally, what I personally would suggest all of us is that given that modern education in a way is amazing, and that in ways that it gives you a sense of the rationalizing things. It gives a sense of the importance of the rationality, which is so important, which means that how you explain things on the basis of cause and effect, efficacy of the cause and effect. This is so important. And at times we can fall into blind faith. Blind faith. And if you don't have this appreciation for the efficacy of cause and effect, how the cause and effect operates, if you don't have this appreciation to this deep conviction, sense value of this, then we are prone to fall into I'll say blind faith easily. This is very dangerous. And then so with this, the blind faith, then say, and in the future lifetimes, we may meet with the place, environment, or the system, tradition, family, who follow things so blindly. And then you did not really build up this tendency in your mind, the inquisitive mind. You do not build this, and then you also blindly follow. So blindly follow is very dangerous. There's no escape from samsara. We have to continue to shed tears endlessly. This is very scary. So therefore, in this life, particularly having met with these teachings like Nagarjuna's teaching on the interest of the commentary on bodhicitta and so forth, we have to make it a point that in this life, we learn this skill, how to appreciate the efficacy of cause and effect, that everything can be explained on all the functional things, meaning that everything which are related to us in terms of your happiness, your miseries, they all come about by dependence on their respective causes. There's no room for blind faith that, okay, say somebody guru blesses you, and then, oh, you pray to this, and then you become a Nobel laureate in physics. It's impossible. So they say there's no room for blind faith. Whereas if we don't really practice, study, reflect, meditate on these concepts, how the cause and effect, the relationship, how if you desire a goal, that goal must be attained by depending on its own corresponding causes, conditions, not the discordant causes, conditions. This is so important. So if that happens, that many of the people who are born in different traditions, when they see that, so it doesn't really make sense to me, I would rather be more happy to accept something which has a rational explanation, which means that that person has either in this life, you have developed this, the affinity to the cause and effect, the relationship, or in a past life, you are used to these traditions, like, for example, the study of the Sadhisthamba Sutra and so forth, then there is the likelihood that you will not fall prey to the blind faith. This is so important. So having said this, the dependent origination, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, they classifies understanding of dependent origination on 3 levels. On 3 levels. The first one is the dependent origination of the results dependence on the causes. Number 1, dependent origination of the results dependence on causes. This is number 1. Number 2, dependent origination of the wholes dependence on the parts. Dependent origination of the wholes dependence on parts. And finally, dependent origination of dependence on mere mental designation or mental imputation. Let me repeat it. The first one, dependent origination of the results dependence on causes, number 1. Number 2, dependent origination of the wholes dependence on parts. Then finally, dependent origination of dependence on mere mental designation. So now, on the first one, dependent origination of the results dependence on cause. Under this, the law of karma, the complex operation of law of karma, it all falls under this category. Dependent origination of the results depends on the causes. Law of karma, everything falls under this category. And then let's say that within the spectrum of cause and effect operation, we see that there are 2 classes. One is cause and effect where the mental intention is not involved. For example, say if I throw this pen here on my desk like this, then it makes a sound. It makes a sound. Say I throw this pen on this desk and it makes a sound. So that the pen falling and it hits the table and the sound is produced. It has nothing to do with law of karma. This is known as the natural cause and effect operation. Natural cause and effect where intention is not involved. For example, leaves fall. Naturally, the leaves fall in autumn. In the fall, the leaves fall. Leaves fall, and then it makes some cracking sounds. So that is a natural cause and effect. Whereas the intention is involved. For example, like say I address somebody, I call somebody, say person A, let's say Tenzin, say, hey Tenzin. So there's a tone, beautiful tone there. There's another aggression is there. Aggression is there. So the point is, sometimes even though it's so they say the voice and the tone is tender, but mentally I may be angry towards the person, and I may diplomatically, use nice words or nice tone. But deep inside, there's anger there. So this particular tone or the words, utterance of the word happens because of the intention involved. So with the compassionate intention or with the anger, intention of anger. So with the intention of anger, these words flow, this becomes a negative karma. Negative karma. Say this action of the flow of the words is negative karma. With the intention of compassion, intention of affection, words flow meant to help the other person. There's a positive karma. So they say the same, the act, whether it's going to be it falls under the category of the law of karma or not, law of karma or outside law of karma, cause and effect outside law of karma. It depends on whether or not that cause and effect has the element of intention involved. But the mental intentions involved, then automatically that cause and effect dynamic becomes the karmic cause and effect. Okay, this is one thing that we need to know. So having said this, for example, like say, given the example of this flower, let's say, this flower, it fulfills all the 3 levels of cause and effect. Sorry, dependent origination. The first, that this flower comes into existence, but depends on its previous the causes causes conditions. So which means that this is dependent origination, where the result comes into existence by dependence on the causes, number one. Number two, that this flower is made of multiple parts. Simultaneously, the flower comes into being by dependence on the multiple parts. But depends on these parts, we see that the flower comes into being. For example, like so the petals, the stem, stigma, and so forth. By depends on these parts, then the flower comes into being. So the flower as a whole comes into being by dependence on its parts. That is number two. This is also relatively easy. Then number three, that when you zoom into this flower, which we technically refer to as subjecting the flower to ultimate analysis. Subjecting the flower to ultimate analysis, we end up seeing that the flower is made of cells. Cells are made of, say, the cells are made of nucleus, then the cell membrane, cytoplasm, and the nucleus made of the chromosomes, which in turn made of the DNA molecules, then the atoms. So on the atomic level, we see that it's just a pool of atoms. And where's the flower there? The concept of flower dissolves on that level. Without disturbing the flower, just to keep the flower as it is there, if you look at it through subjecting this flower to ultimate analysis, we see that the flower dissolves. The concept of flower dissolves. We have not disturbed the flower, but the concept of flower dissolves with respect to the ultimate analysis, the mind which goes into the object to see where the flower is on the atomic level. So the point is that but when you come out, what is really here, if at all something is there, it's just atoms. Even the atoms also to be put under question. But for the time being, if at all something is there, what if we've discovered it is just a pool of atoms? And none of the atoms, no different from the atoms, is there the flower there. So, but from distance, when you look at it, invariably you see a flower. You don't see a chocolate. You don't see a house. You don't see a computer. You see a flower there. What is that? This is known as the infallible dependent origination. But dependence on these bunch of the pool of atoms with a particular distance, the karmic, the propensities, and all this combined together, make you perceive this object as a flower. So the flower comes into being by dependence on your mental imputation. Mental imputation of a flower, just the appearance of flower comes to you. Appearance of flower comes to you, that is a flower. So beyond that, there's nothing, there's a flower there from the object. It's purely what comes to you, to your subjective mind. So this is known as the subjective imputation. Of course, this is a little technical. Don't worry about that part for the time being. So what is important is that with this same flower, the same object, we see that all the three levels of dependent origination are seen intact with this particular object. So of course, then the more detailed explanations are there, say how the lower schools, except for the Madhyamakas, how the lower schools like Chittamatra and the South Transit school, they equate dependent origination with the composite phenomena or impermanent phenomena, and where the Madhyamakas, for them, existence and dependent origination, these two are synonymous. In other words, whatever exists should necessarily fulfill dependent origination. Whereas for the lower schools like Chittamatra and South Transit school, the dependent origination is applicable only to the composite phenomena, not to the non-composite phenomena. Okay, this is a little bit different. The point. Then the next point that I'd like to share with you here is that say that if we really jump into emptiness directly, as I said earlier, there's a great likelihood that we'll fall into nihilism. Or even if you don't fall into nihilism, still you may not appreciate the emptiness concept as much. So this requires, say, each one of us to keep maturing in your study, reflection, and meditation emptiness. Keep maturing. If you don't do that, then either you fall in nihilism, or you will just they brush this aside, saying that this doesn't make any sense. Or You will say, yeah, this is what Hisoden is always taught us, emptiness. And then you don't really value this concept. What is this? Break the flower into atoms, and then the flower. What is this? You would not value this because you're not matured. So for that matter, it is like, say, a small child. When you were age 2 or 3, and if you can say A for apple, B for ball, the parents will say good. And then when you say first say A, B, C, parents are very happy. When you age 3, 4, still A, B, C, parents will be very upset. No, now say A for apple, B for ball. Again, if you say A, B, parents will be very upset. So if you say A for apple, B for ball, C for cat, parents are very happy, right? And then when you reach the age 10, you should be able to say the apples grow by dependence on causes. Instead of saying A for apple, B for ball, parents will be very upset. So when you were age 2, 3, 4, parents will give you teddy bear. You hold the teddy bear. This is your belonging. This is your everything possession. You be your age 10, age 20, still teddy bear, too much. Again, holding teddy bear, go to college with a teddy bear. This is too much. So you have to change. You have to grow. You have to mature. Likewise, the maturation, physical maturation happens automatically. And then the conventional maturation in at home, in your community, like how you behave, holding teddy bear, and then later on, next word, holding a bag with the books. Then maybe the tablet, right? Tablet. And then if you don't go to the extreme of the Facebook, Instagram all the time and reel all the time, right? If you don't go to that extreme, then you can do magic and eventually you can become a Nobel laureate in physics, Nobel laureate in literature, Nobel laureate in chemistry, and so forth. So we have to keep growing. So this is what happens in the conventional world. But mentally, towards a greater purpose of life, whether you grow or not, particularly seeing emptiness, whether you grow or not, it's not that the community will make sure that you're growing. No, it is you who should decide. For that to happen, you have to create the environment for yourself. If you don't create the environment, the community will not create the environment for you. Community will, say, create environment for your maturation in the conventional world, like holding teddy bear or like holding a bag of books and so forth. These the conventional world will. So you're already 20, 30, still holding a teddy bear like this, holding your mother's hand, teddy bear like this, then the community will start staring at you like this, which seems that this is not good. But you grow age 20, 30, 40, 50, still you don't hold a book on emptiness, nobody will care. It's fine. So therefore, creating an environment for you to grow in this important journey of seeing emptiness, experiencing bodhicitta. For that, you have to create the environment yourself. Nobody will help you. It is only you having the interest, showing interest, that you can create this environment for yourself. So only through creating the correct environment, you see that you're growing year by year, if not month by month, year by year, you see that you're growing. Then gradually your experience of emptiness can really, really shine. You will reach to a point whereby you get a feeling that this is the ultimate, this is the meaning of my life. So with this, I can stop all the tears of samsara. You will get this confidence. Okay. So with this, what is important is there are many points to be discussed, but then we also have, because that the background information and emptiness, this is so important. Without this, then the text is all about emptiness. The earlier part of the text is okay. Then it's somewhere in the middle, then it's all about emptiness. And then many of us may even feel bored instead of appreciating it. And many of us may feel that this is okay. So I got the answer. Everything, nothing is there means ultimately nothing's there. Everything there means convention, everything's there. And then it becomes too simplistic. You will not appreciate the text. okay, with this mind, so we will do keep like a balance here. We'll read the some of the verses today, and then we will blend the two together, reading the text and then say giving the background information about emptiness together. Okay, the Sneh, would you mind sharing the text? Sharing the text. Okay, Sneh, you remember where we left, which verse we left yesterday?
I think we finished verse number 4.
Okay. Okay. Verse number 4, let me read this once more. Thus far, it's pretty okay. The self. So what we're learning here is that everything is like a dream. Everything is like a dream, meaning that we also discuss about how we used to have nightmares, very scary dreams, and why we had this, why we had the fear in the dream, because of the believing the dream is real. And when you wake up, the fear dissolves. Why? Come to know that whatever happened in the dream was not, they were not real. They're not objectively real. They're all subjectively coming from your dreaming mind. The moment you discover that, then all your fears dissolve. This is the concept. So for this, when you see that everything, the benefit, not only that conventional dream is something which a mind creates, even in the waking state, whatever we are experiencing, or whatever visually that we see, that we hear, that we taste, that we smell, and the thoughts, everything, and they're like the dreams. So the dream, we speak of two kinds of dream. One is the conventional dream, and the other one is unconventional dream. Conventional meaning the dream which we conventionally talk about. Okay, last night I dreamt of going for a holiday. I dreamt of, and say, having a difficult time and so forth. So that is a conventional dream, and we wake up from this conventional dream every day. A conventional dream is that we wake up, again we fall asleep, again we have the dream, we wake up, we go to bed, we fall asleep. But with what is happening in the daytime, what is happening outside the conventional dream, there's also another dream. This we call as unconventional dream. This is known as unconventional dream. What is happening today at the moment, I'm sharing this and the teaching, coming to Bodhicitta with you. And then so you have your surrounding, say you are in your own room, in your own house, and you see things around you. These are all like dream. These are all like dream. But don't say that this is dream. This is like dream, dreamlike. Dreamlike, we call it unconventional dream. So I'll say the people here, including myself, we have been waking up from the conventional dream every day, but we have never woken up from the unconventional dream. If we wake up from the unconventional dream, all our tears of samsara will stop, and then that we don't have to dream once more. The dreams will stop altogether. Unconventional dream will stop altogether. This is liberation. This is nirvana. And then on top of that, if a full awakening happens, full waking up happens, then you attain Buddhahood, not only nirvana, but also Buddhahood. And of course, there's an extremely fine distinction between, say, what blocks you from attaining, say, what kind of the sleep, what kind of ignorance in the form of sleep forbids you from experiencing nirvana, and what kind of sleep, what kind of ignorance, or what kind of the factors stop you from attaining Buddhahood. We call it afflictive obscurations and cognitive obscurations. And what's the distinction? How do you demarcate between these two things? So, okay, to make it very quick, the afflictive is more related to the erroneous apprehension of the objects pertaining to the objective reality, erroneous apprehension of the object. And the cognitive obscuration is more to do with the erroneous appearance of the object. So this is a main distinction between the afflictive and cognitive obscurations. And of course, afflictive, majority of the gross ones, we can easily identify them. The subtle one, self-grasping ignorance. These are something which we cannot identify till we have some understanding of what emptiness is like. Okay, so I don't want to go too much into that part. So with this in mind, our job is to stop the fears, the nightmare of samsara. How to stop that? Wake up. In what way waking up helps us? By waking up, we come to see that whatever happened in the dream-like, says samsara, is all coming from our mind. It's not really objectively there. So this is a wisdom, as opposed to the belief that things exist as objectively real, which is ignorance. So acquiring this wisdom to wake you up from the sleep of ignorance, that makes you to stop all the tears of samsara. This one. And then so with this, the next question is how to wake up. How to wake up from the sleep of ignorance. So they say waking up means that you be able to see that whatever is happening is all just a pure play of your own mind. Nothing really objectively there. So this recognition comes to us as purely that everything is purely subjective, nothing is objective. This recognition, when this recognition comes to us, this is the meaning of waking up. Because in this dream, while in the sleep, having the dream, you see dream as so real, objectively real. And then the dream contents, they affect us. Believing that things are objectively real, they start to affect us. Realizing that things are not objectively real, they're all coming from the subject, the contents of the dream stops to affect us. This is when you are liberated. So with this in mind, our job is to wake up from the sleep of ignorance. So how to wake up from the sleep of ignorance? This is the question. The point is that how to see things as empty of objective reality. So the Buddha remained silent for 49 days, not giving teachings at all. The reason why it is the Buddha remained silent for 49 days is for the reason that this ultimate reality, that everything is like a dream, that nothing is objectively, is so profound that the Buddha very clearly indicated that hardly there's anybody who can fathom this teaching on emptiness. So the Buddha, at the request of the Indra and Brahma, the requested the Buddha for giving teachings to all the beings. Buddha said, independent. In English, profound, peaceful, elaboration-free, clear-lighted, non-composite, such a nectar-like dharma is what I've discovered. Finding no one who can fathom this teaching, in silence I'll retire into the woods. So this concept is very profound. And finally, through more insistent request made by supplication request, the supplication from Indra and Brahma, then finally Buddha assented to give the teachings. The Buddha headed towards Varanasi and started giving the teachings. So in the form of, say, the uncovering this the reality layer by layer. So initially, the first Tenet of Dharma, Buddha taught very simple, Four Noble Truths. Giving the impression to the audience that Four Noble Truths exist as truly. And in the second Tenet of Dharma, the Buddha taught that nothing exists truly. And third Tenet of the Buddha Dharma, the third Tenet of the teaching, the Buddha then explained that the Chitta philosophy. So with this in mind, Buddha was explaining, Buddha attempted to explain this ultimate reality, which is the core teaching of this text, by unfolding the reality layer by layer. So here also, Nagarjuna adopted that. first explained how the extremely solidified version of the self as espoused by the non-Buddhist schools, they do not exist. And then gradually going to the Chittamatra philosophy, how even the belief that the mind exists as objective real, even that has to be dismantled. Number two, and then finally, when you explain the emptiness of objective existence. So number four is the self as postulated by the extremists. Extremists meaning the advocates of the self as permanent, unitary, independent. The reality, when you thoroughly analyze it with reasoning, within all the aggregates, so such a self as permanent, unitary, independent entity, if it does exist, it should exist as independent from the five aggregates, aggregated body and the mind, because that if such this self exists, it should be independent of the aggregates. So no way can we find a locus for it, locus meaning such an illustration, but is a self which is different from the five aggregates. We don't find such thing, because you go through your body, we don't see any self as different from the body, because when you say that I'm a male, I'm a female, it's all in the context of your body. And then again, it cannot be separated, seen as separate from the mind. Because when you say that I'm kind, I'm not kind, I'm an angry person, I'm the compassionate person, it's all about your mind. So you cannot really see the self as different from mental state, but to be associated as one entity with the aggregates. Number five, aggregates exist but are not permanent. Same, the Buddha at one point taught that the Buddha, in fact, this is so important for us to know, and the effort to understand emptiness also should not be just some people. What they tell me is that, okay, should I just tell me emptiness of Prasanga directly? I don't want to waste my time to learn about emptiness of other schools. So why not emptiness of Prasanga directly? So it's not that easy. It is like saying that, Geshe, please tell me the PhD program directly. I don't want to do the undergrad and the master's, right? I want PhD directly. There's no way. Even if somebody is ready to, for example, Albert Einstein, he could not make his son and they do physics, the PhD in physics, because his son is not at all ready for that. His son was not ready for that. His son was more into psychology. So Albert Einstein, his son did not see any value in his father. Instead, he was more interested in psychology. So Albert Einstein, he had to contact Sigmund Freud to introduce his son to Sigmund Freud. And, his son doesn't value him because his son is not interested in physics. So the point is that it's not about, we have to grow ourselves to be receptive to these sophisticated topics. So the Buddha, to acknowledging this, the Buddha taught at one point, the Buddha taught that the four aggregates, the five aggregates, they are like the loads, and the person is the load carrier. Meaning that five aggregates at one point, just to suit the tendency, temperament, and the inclination of those particular disciples. Then on the occasion, the Buddha taught that so here, as he said, aggregates exist but are not permanent. So here, the Buddha taught that the karmas and their ripening results exist, but the person does not exist. Let me repeat it. On another occasion, the Buddha taught that karma and the ripening results exist. Person does not exist. So here, the Buddha taught that karma and the ripening results in the form of five aggregates, they do exist. So here, aggregates exist, but this does not exist. So the Buddha taught the emptiness of autonomous substantial reality of the self. And the Buddha taught the emptiness of the self to be empty of autonomous substantial reality. Then yet on another occasion, the Buddha taught all three worlds are your mind, or all three realms are your mind. Meaning that There's nothing beyond, there's no external reality there. It's all your mind which exists. Again, this is another the level of the teaching the Buddha gave, which is way more sophisticated than in comparison with the first and second. Then still another occasion, the Buddha taught that nothing truly exists. Like what the Buddha taught, form is empty, emptiness is form. So there, the Buddha the taught that everything is empty of objective existence. So Buddha taught the concept of emptiness on the level of this on the stepwise way, on based on the stepwise understanding, to create the stepwise understanding of emptiness. So first very gross, then subtler, and finally to the ultimate real. So number 5, verse number 5, it reads, aggregates exist. Yes, they exist, but they're not permanent. They do not have the nature of selfhood. And within the aggregates, you don't see any selfhood there. So as I said earlier, the book substantial self there. They do not have the nature of selfhood. A permanent and an impermanent cannot exist as a supported and supported. Aggregates as impermanent and your proposition of the self to be permanent. These two cannot be these support and supported. Say the two substantial things, one the aggregates and other the self, both seen as substantial entities, and one seen as permanent, one seen as impermanent. They are totally incongruent. They're not really compatible to each other. So they cannot exist as support and supported. Number 6, if the so-called self does not exist, then if such a self through these reasons, if you see that just the 5 aggregates exist, but the self as self as autonomous substantial reality or as a permanent entity does not exist, how can the so-called agent be permanent? So they talk about the agent. They talk about the agent, that the self as the agent who partakes in all the experiences of happiness, suffering, and so forth. Such an agent cannot possibly exist. If there were things, then one could investigate their attributes in the world. If you say that the self exists, then we can describe that self as agent or not agent. But if the self per se does not exist, how can you describe the self as an agent? Number 7. Okay. Yes, number 8. If it were number 7, since a permanent cannot function. Oh yes, since a permanent cannot function to cause in gradual or instantaneous terms, so both without and within, no such permanent entity exists. So this is a reasoning which is employed by the Buddhist logicians to reject the permanent self, saying that if the self is permanent, so if a self is permanent in the first place, whatever is a permanent thing cannot give rise to a result, So if it does give rise to a result, there are 2 ways of giving the result. Number 1, giving the result in a sequential way, gradual meaning sequential way. For example, like say a child, say the mother, brings up the child. The parents bring up the child, give food, give chocolates, and then teddy bear, and gradually they becoming doing PhD gradually. So this is how the parents are supporting the child in a gradual way. It doesn't mean that the parents, they support the child's PhD program, and then the next day, the day when you're born, the next day you become a PhD holder. No, it doesn't happen. So it happens gradually. So another way is instantaneous. These are only 2 ways. If you give a result, if you give rise to a result, the result should be given either in a sequential way or instant. These are only 2 ways for a result to come into being. So, but with a permanent thing, in whatever way, be it gradual, this is not possible. The instantaneous is also not possible, because the moment you say that it gives rise to a result, it gives rise to a result. Then they say with the gradual, let's say, with the gradual, say if we want to say it gives rise to a result. So which means that, say first the child age 1, age 2, age 3, different results come into being. If permanent, if the cause is permanent, then the whatever result that it gives rise to. So why it gives rise to the result age 1, not that of the result of the age 2? Why not? Because they being permanent it has a potential to give rise to all the results right there. Why it gives only the result of the one age, the 1 day, the what 1 year old, the result, and not the 2-year-old result? Why not? So the cause is permanent. It has the everything intact there. So from this, the gradual is not possible. And instantaneous, this is impossible to see in the world, because that, for example, somebody do PhD. So you say, okay, I'll do PhD, and the next day you become PhD. Instantaneous is impossible. So both are impossible with respect to the cause, which is a permanent. So both without and within, no such permanent entity exists. If it were potent, so if this cause, say the permanent self, if this cause is potent meaning having the capacity as a cause to give rise to the result, if it is potent, why would it be dependent? Say the result, you may say that, okay, it depends on other factors. Then why should it depend on other factors? Why would it be dependent if it is, say a substantial entity to be permanent? This is one important point to keep in mind. A substantial entity like a self to be permanent, then it should not be dependent on any other things. Whereas for a non-substantial, how the Buddhist philosophers would explain, for example, non-compass space, it is still dependent, it's permanent, but dependent. But if it's substantial and permanent, it should not be dependent on any other factors. So this is one point that we need to remember. If it were potent meaning if it has capacity to give rise to the result independent of any other factor, why should it be dependent on other factors? Why should you have to wait for, say, why it doesn't give rise to, say, today is 2024. And let's say that there's the permanent cause which gives rise to the results of the only 2024, not 2025 at the moment. Why not 2020, the result of 2025 given rise to today? Because there are other factors missing, which means that this permanent cause is dependent on other factors. So if it is dependent on other factors, then it is not independent. It is not independent. If it were potent as independent, the what would be dependent, for it would bring forth everything at once. That which depends upon something else is neither eternal. So instead of eternal here, better the word should be permanent. Eternal has a different connotation. Eternal means something which lasts long. It does not have the connotation of the permanence. Permanence and eternal, these two are slightly different. It's neither permanent nor potent. No potent to give rise to results on its own. Okay, we stop here. It's 9:18.
Should we recite our dedication prayers, Geshe?
Yes, of course.
In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara's end. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samantabhadra too realize things as they are, also I dedicate all these merits in the best way that I may follow their perfect example. May the supreme bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase forevermore. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find new hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from the illness, and may every disease in the world never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting one another. By the merits I have accumulated, may every single being abandon all forms of wrongdoing and perpetually engage in virtue. May they never be parted from the mind of bodhicitta, and may they always engage in the Bodhisattva's conduct. May they be cared for by the Buddhas and relinquish the actions of devils. May no living creature ever suffer, commit wrong, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled, or their minds ever be depressed. May all the pains of living beings ripen solely upon myself, and through the might of the Bodhisattva Sangha, may all beings experience happiness. I dedicate all these roots of virtue with the dedication praised as the best by all the Buddhas who appeared in the 3 times, so that I might perform the noble Bodhisattva's deeds. Thank you so much, Geshe-la, for your lovely teachings.
Yes.
Thank you, Sneh. Thank you. And thank you, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so
We
much.
will see you next week, Geshe-la, next Saturday, everyone.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Best wishes, Geshe-la. Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Bye, everyone. See you all
Thank
next week.
everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Shanti Davis.
Bye.
Charlie.
Yeah. I should do that one too.